to the Top 10er show. I'm Liv.
And I'm James. This week, we're going to catch them all, and that means it's time for a top 10 Pokemon games list.
So let's dive into some of the most iconic Pokemon games.
Kicking off our list is the game that let a whole new generation experience the Kanto region from Gen 1, and that is Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. There's also Let's Go Eevee, but it's Pikachu. You gotta go with Pikachu. This charming title was the first venture onto home consoles for a mainline Pokemon game, and it delivered in spades. Like Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, you take on the challenge of exploring the Kanto region, acquiring the 8 gym badges, and eventually battling the Elite Four. Where it differs, though, is with the addition to the beloved original 151, you can also experience their Mega Evolve forms as well as their Alolan forms, which is a pleasant surprise to see. With the love it or hate it introduction of the Pokeball Plus, this game allowed for a more immersive way of capturing your Pokemon. Based on how you threw the ball, you would get additional experience points for your team, so it challenged us as players to come up with ever more creative ways to catch them. While Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow are what a lot of fans, myself included, started off with in this franchise, personally, I'm happy that this reimagining is here so a new generation can truly experience the wonder of arguably the best 151 Pokemon ever and the Kanto region.
I really liked using the Pokeball Plus controller. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I kind of miss when video games came with extra components. Speaking of which, can Rock Band and Guitar Hero please make a comeback? At number 9, we've selected Pokemon Legends Arceus. This game launched in 2022 and was nominated for Best RPG at the Game Awards. Pokemon needed a shakeup. They needed something new. In this game, Pokemon in the wild could attack you. If you took too much damage, you would fall unconscious and reappear at the camp. Some Pokemon could be caught without battling them, if you're sneaky enough. Traversing in this Pokemon game was incredible compared to the other iterations of this game. You could swim across bodies of water, climb cliffs, and fly. So naturally, fans drew comparisons between The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild when it comes to this art style and gameplay. Now that's quite the compliment. Combining two of the most beloved Nintendo franchises, Pokemon Legends Arceus served as the perfect game for this series.
This was a fun reimagining of what a Pokemon game could be, and I really hope they give us more surprises like this and not letdowns like Scarlet and Violet. I said what I said. At our number 8 spot, we have none other than Pokemon Omega Red and Alpha Sapphire. These were remakes of the popular Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire games originally found on the Game Boy Advance, only this time, both have elements from Pokemon Emerald as well. These titles were the 4th best-selling games on the Nintendo 3DS and were a welcome nostalgic reprieve from the 6th generation games X and Y, which kind of overstayed their welcome. You, as the player, return to the Hoenn region and undertake the quest as usual to complete the Pokédex. Along the way, you're going to battle either Team Magma in Omega Red or Team Aqua in Alpha Sapphire as you work to foil their schemes to use Groudon or Kyogre and their plans to either flood the world or make it more landmass for humans. You know, hey, we need more territory, what can we say? I'm a huge fan of Blast from the Past being able to be experienced on newer consoles, and these two games, they hit it out of the park. If you haven't experienced either Omega Red or Alpha Sapphire, stop what you're doing, go grab a copy, and dive back into the Hoenn region for one of the best experiences in Pokemon.
This time around, I picked up Alpha Sapphire because I thought Kyogre was adorable. My parents actually put Kyogre's picture on my birthday cake one year. Number 7 on our list is Pokemon Snap. Photo mode fans, listen up. Originally released in 1999, this game has had several re-releases since then. You play as Todd Snap as he moves automatically on a rail, and the whole purpose of this game is to take photos of Pokemon. After each round, you are judged based on the quality of your shots. If you need to get a better shot, use apples and pester balls to encourage Pokemon to get in just the right spot. Back in the day, you could take your Nintendo 64 cartridge to either Blockbuster or Lawson stores in North America and Japan to have your pictures printed on stickers. Now, isn't that a blast from the past? This game is right up my alley. I love photo mode in video games, and I wish every game had this feature. Honestly, this might be one of my favorite Pokemon games.
This is a blast from my past as I enjoyed Pokemon Snap when it released on the Nintendo 64. And as a photographer now for my day job, this is one I go back to with newfound appreciation. At number 6, we have Pokemon Emerald. like its predecessors, Red and Blue, which then had Yellow, and Gold and Silver, which then had Crystal, Pokemon Emerald was a new way to experience the world of Hoenn and came after Ruby and Sapphire. Of all the older Pokemon titles, this one was the most complete in combining the two individual titles of its generation. Pokemon Emerald allowed you to experience major story beats from Ruby and Sapphire, as you could defeat both Team Magma and Team Aqua, along with being able to capture both the legendaries in one game. This game truly set itself apart with the amazing post-game content in the form of the Battle Frontier, along with the chance to encounter both Latias and Latios. This was truly the first time for me personally that a Pokemon game felt complete with all of this extra content, and that's why it deserves a place on this list.
At number 5, we've chosen Pokémon Stadium. This game was released in 1999 in Japan and 2000 everywhere else. This was one of my favorite games growing up. Pokémon Stadium is different from the other games in the franchise, as it is not narrative driven. The gameplay loop in this game is playing against CPUs in various cups. Upon winning each cup, you can progress to the Gym Leader Castle until you progress far enough to unlock Mewtwo. If you were more like me, then you would just invite your friends over and just play against each other instead. My friends were always so much better than me, I swear, they knew everything there was to know about this game. If you just want to play in the Pokemon battles and don't particularly care for the story, then this game is for you.
I cannot tell you the countless hours my friends and I would spend battling our teams just to see who was better. There may or may not have been some lunch money that had been thrown down, so each battle was always serious for us.
Just outside the top 3 this week, we've chosen Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. This was released in Japan in 2006 and 2007 everywhere else. Since this game launched on the DS, it utilized both screens. The Pokétech was similar to the smartwatch, so the bottom DS screen had a clock, a calculator, a map, a counter, and a drawing pad. Personally, the evolution of the Pokemon contest from the Game Boy Advance games was my favorite addition to the game. Now with 3 stages to the Pokemon contest, your Pokemon were judged on cuteness, dancing, and acting. This reminded me of the Nintendogs competitions, which was one of my favorite games ever on the DS.
So these were titles I personally never played at launch, and it took their re-release on the Nintendo Switch for me to truly appreciate them. So honestly, I think it's time for me to go find those DS versions and experience them once again. Taking the number 3 spot this week is Pokemon Crystal. Released in 2001, this was the final game taking place in the second generation of Pokemon games, and whoo boy did it deliver. Taking everything that was amazing with Gold and Silver, Pokemon Crystal dialed it up to an 11. For the first time, we got to experience a more narrative approach to the story with the addition of the character Yusin and her search for Suicune. From improved sprites to additional content and a fun new way to interact with the Unknown Pokemon, Crystal was a massive game and a ridiculously little package on that Game Boy Color. For me, this was the first time that I was beyond invested. I think I spent maybe 400 hours on this game alone, and I'd find myself at lunch trading Pokemon and battling over that link cable while I was in middle school. Pokemon Crystal did so well, it became the #1 selling game of all time on the Game Boy Color. And this was truly the game that paved the way forward for more amazing Pokemon generations to come. If you happen to have a Game Boy Color and Pokemon Crystal, I hope after hearing us talk about it on our list today that you take the time to load it back up and enjoy the Johto region one more amazing time.
Oh my god, I remember the link cables. You know, the Game Boy had so many funky accessories that we might just need to do a top 10 Game Boy accessories list one day.
Our number 2 entry is a lot packed into one, and that is Pokemon Black and White 1 and 2. It was hard to choose just one entry out of these 4, so they all made the list. I mean, it's our list, we do what we want. In these games, we see the introduction of triple and rotation battles, along with what has to be the best story in a Pokemon game. I know I've used the word story a lot, and Pokemon and story don't go hand in hand, but in this case, it really, really does. You as a player enjoy all of the Pokemon trappings that you regularly get while fighting Team Plasma as their leader wants to capture a legendary of the Unova region, become the champion, and then convince people to part with their Pokemon instead of battling them. Noble ideals, but again, Team Plasma, not very noble. We even see a return of Team Plasma as Neo Team Plasma in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, and it is for that rare continuation, as Pokemon tends to move regions and with each release you get a brand new game, that all 4 entries deserve a place on our list. That, and the fact There are over 300 Pokemon waiting for us, which was unheard of before then.
When James wanted to lump all of this into the second spot this week, I felt like he was cheating. But I guess we'll see what's on the top of the list this week.
Taking our number 1 spot this week is Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And you're hearing from me one more time. I do have to give Liv credit, this was a joint pick though. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver stand out as the pinnacle of the Pokemon series for many fans, largely due to their masterful enhancement of the beloved original Gold and Silver games. These remakes expand on the classic adventure through the Johto region with beautifully updated graphics and sounds that bring the world to life that feels both amazing for us older fans and fresh for newer fans. The addition of the Pokewalker, a pedometer device, was an amazing cool feature that allowed players to take their Pokemon with them in real life, deepening the bond between player and Pokemon while adding a fun interactive twist that had never been done before. Moreover, Heart Gold and Soul Silver refined gameplay mechanics and introduced new features that enriched the user experience. The games allowed Pokemon to follow players around in the game world, a charming detail that fans adored because it allowed them to interact more personally with their Pokemon. The inclusion of 2 regions to explore, just like in the original, Johto and Kanto, offered an expansive narrative and gameplay experience, doubling the adventure and challenges. Heck, you could even get Generation 3 Pokemon in this game. These games not only honored their roots, but they set a ridiculously high standard for user engagement and content richness, making them a cherished chapter in the Pokemon saga for both new players and seasoned trainers alike. That does it for this week's show, so now it's time to tally the results. With 5 joint picks and Liv's 1 pick, I think it's safe to say that I won by a landslide this week with 4 picks. I am the king of the list yet again. How does that feel, Liv?
Look, you clearly know your stuff when it comes to Pokemon. But in my defense, my personal 10 picks didn't include many of the mainline games, but that doesn't mean that spin-off games don't deserve some love too. Something I want to address though is why are there always 2 Pokemon games released at the same time? Who is buying both of these games at launch? Sure, you can convince a friend to buy the other copy, but just put all the Pokemon in one game. I'm pretty surprised this is largely left out of the discourse when it comes to Pokemon.
I mean, 2 games is better than 1, right? That does it for this week's episode. Did your favorite Pokemon game make the list? Did Liv and I have it completely wrong, and are we crazy with our picks? Let us know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching this week's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Top 10ers. Next week, we're going to be sharing our top 10 Nintendo Switch games. Don't touch that dial, and return on Fridays for us.